What's up YouTube, Fuzzy Cheeks here with more of that Lorcana content you crave. I recently had the chance to play in a 24-player Lorcana Sealed tournament and tied for second place, going 2-0, 2-1, and 2-0 over 3 rounds of play. Let me tell you, it was so much fun. I love draft style formats in general, but being able to pull cards, put together something truly unique with fewer restrictions, and then test it out against everyone else's improv, it's a great time all around, and I want to take my experience and use it to give you an edge in all of your future sealed events. I'll leave a picture of the deck I ended up using in the tournament at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around for that. First, if you don't know what the sealed format is, it's an alternative format to the standard constructed format. In sealed, you're given 6 booster packs with a normal 12 cards each, and you have to build a deck with just those cards right there on the spot. What really differentiates this format from constructed is that you only need a 40 card deck to play, and you can use any ink colors in your deck. That's right, you can play with 1, 2, 3, or all the way up to 6 ink colors in your deck. The combos can get wild, and after your first tournament, this is all you'll want to play. Now, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's dive into my top 5 tips to help you win any Lorcana Sealed tournament. Number 1, Evasives. I cannot stress this tip enough, and if you take nothing else away from this video, let it be this. Put every evasive you pull into your deck. I don't care what they cost, what they quest for, or if they're inkable or not. Evasives are already a potent force in the constructed version of this game, but in a format where your choices and, more importantly, your opponent's choices are limited, evasives are the strongest thing you can have in your deck. With your opponents having the same low chance of pulling evasives for their own deck as you do, the chances of your evasive characters being able to stay on the board and quest unopposed are extremely high. Once you have the evasives in your deck, your gameplay strategy is to only use them to quest and take out your opponent's evasives if they have any. You don't want to waste those precious lore batteries on challenging characters that any non-evasive character can take out unless you absolutely have to. You'll see that I included 5 evasives in my deck, which was every one that I pulled, and 2 of them are uninkable. Normally, I would have most likely stayed away from the 2 higher cost uninkable Tinkerbells, but in this format, evasive trumps high cost uninkable status every time. Tip number 2, removal. This tip should really be on the same level as evasives, but because evasives give you lore and removal actions don't, this takes second place. Still, removal actions are essential to this format. The chances of pulling a removal action card from a pack are even lower than the chances of pulling an evasive. So because of that, your entire strategy for gameplay changes drastically. If you don't have to worry about your opponent playing Be Prepared 4 turns in a row or throwing out a Grab Your Sword followed by 2 Fire the Cannons, then that opens up a whole new world of possibilities for how you can play. Want to throw 6 of your characters on the board at once? Go ahead. The chances of your opponent being able to remove them are so low, it's usually worth the risk. You'll genuinely be shocked when your opponent plays the 1 or 2 removal actions they have in their deck, which means they'll be equally surprised when you do it. With the knowledge that you have one of these cards in your hand, you can let your opponents be a little cocky and play a character they don't think you can deal with, and then BAM! Their power play is gone. Every removal you pull should be in your deck. I included Dragon Maleficent in my deck purely because of her removal ability. I knew it was a risk because she costs 8 ink to play, but I did it anyway. Just like I thought though, I never got to play her because she was so expensive, and I don't think I ever even had 8 ink to use anyway. So her removal ability was nice, but never useful. Tip number 3, card draw. Tips 1 through 3 really should all be at the same level of importance, but people like numbered lists. Card draw, like evasives and removal, is pivotal to your success in this format. This is another card type that's very limited in what you're likely to pull from your 6 packs, so when you see something that can give you any kind of card advantage, it should be considered a must-have for your deck. Friends on the Other Side is a no-brainer for your deck, as are Maleficent Sorceress and Simba Future King. The chances of top decking in normal constructed format are pretty high, and they're even higher here because you can't build your deck with much, if any, synergy. So any chance you have to draw an extra card to give you more options against an opponent with an empty hand could be a game changer. The only caveat here is high cost uninkable card draws like Ursula or any kind of item. Items already don't see as much play as some people would like in this first set, but because you'll likely be playing at a lower ink level in this format, wasting time playing an item or paying to use its ability is often going to be a bad choice. So yes, you could put a magic mirror in your deck, and I'm not going to tell you not to, but I don't think it's a must-have card if you have other options to take up its spot. Speaking of items, you can see I did put 2 items in my deck, Eye of the Fates and Beast's Mirror. Honestly, I don't think I ever got to play these items, and when I drew them, I just used them for ink. They could have been good for some very edge cases, which is why I included them, but if I had some other cards that fit into these first 3 categories, I would have tossed these items in a heartbeat. Tip number 4, avoid Uninkables. This is a solid tip for constructed formats as well, but there's a lot more leeway in the standard format, and Uninkable cards are usually required to play any top deck. However, in Sealed, with only a 40 card deck, you absolutely cannot afford to risk drawing an Uninkable 2 or 3 turns in a row. You generally won't need as much ink in your inkwell for this format as you would for Constructed, because you won't have as many big characters to play, but because your deck is so small and you can't anticipate what your opponent is going to play, not being able to ink for more than 1 turn in the early game is absolutely devastating. A good rule of thumb is that you should only put an uninkable card into your deck if it's an evasive, a removal action, a character with an essential ability that you would be crazy not to put in your deck, or if the card has an ability that returns cards to your hand or your deck, which I guess kind of fits in with the last criteria, but I included it anyway. Here I'm thinking about Hades, Lord of the Underworld, and his ability to return cards from your discard pile to your hand. It's a great uninkable that should most likely be in your deck if you pull it. You can see I put Marshmallow in my deck, and I struggled with this one because he's high cost and uninkable, but his high attack willpower combo coupled with his ability to never really be removed from the game made him a pretty easy choice in the end, and I absolutely don't regret including him. Tip number 5, card return. Because you're playing with a much smaller deck, having playable cards will give you a huge lead over your opponent. For that reason, you should strongly consider including any cards you pull that give you the ability to return cards from your discard pile to your hand or to your deck. Hades, Lord of the Underworld, Magic Broom, Mickey Mouse, Wayward Sorcerer. All great cards that need to be in your deck so you can keep your hand as full as possible to avoid top decking and to keep the one great card you pulled from your packs from being a one-hit wonder. The chances of your opponent pulling a whole new world and drawing it to use against you are extremely low, so it's usually safe to hold cards in your hand that may have otherwise been quick to play once your opponent starts getting higher in their ink. Because I like you guys so much, here's a little something extra for everyone who's been paying attention up to this point. Bonus tip number 6, Bodyguard. Just like the other cards that you aren't going to find much of in your 6 packs, Bodyguards could be the difference between winning and losing a match. Any bodyguard you get out is likely to survive for more than 1 or 2 rounds because they tend to be beefier, and, as discussed in tip number 2, your opponent is unlikely to have removal actions to deal with your bodyguards directly. Making your opponent waste one of their essential characters taking out your bodyguards so they can stop you from questing for 3 with your Mad Hatter will be worth its weight in lore. That being said, your bodyguards will end up being more important than your 1 lore and non-bodyguard characters. And because you don't have a lot of bodyguards to play, you have to use good judgment when deciding if you want to protect your other characters or protect your bodyguard. Either way, any bodyguard you draw should go straight into your deck. As promised, here's the deck I used for my own sealed tournament that put me in 2nd place. And there you have it, my top 5 plus 1 tips for building your next sealed deck and winning your next sealed tournament. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this list, if you think there's anything important I missed, or if you think any of my tips are terrible. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on more essential Lorcana tips. Until next time, keep questing.